Hi, I'm Liz Seeley, founder of Starry-Eyed Strategy, and I help you turn creativity into your greatest competitive advantage. After decades partnering with the world's best, biggest, and most beloved brands, I want to take you behind the scenes to see how the most creative leaders turn ideas into impact. Each episode features leaders from top CEOs and CMOs to founders and authors, revealing how they stay inspired to create brands that launch and last, and how you can do it too. You'll walk away with practical lessons and tools you can use, whether you're repositioning your brand, rallying your team, or planning your next big launch. So let's get started and stay starry-eyed. My guest today is Heather Neary. Heather has more than 2 decades of restaurant brand and franchise leadership experience working with some of the most notable brands in the hospitality industry before joining Taco John's as president and CEO in February of 2024. Almost happy anniversary. She served as the brand president at KBP Brands, a large QSR franchisee of KFC, Taco Bell, and Arby's. She started her restaurant career with the international pretzel franchise Auntie Anne's, where she led multiple teams until she became the brand president. She earned her bachelor's and master's. And Heather, you've done so much. You're a member of the International Franchise Association and has served on the board of directors for the National Restaurant Association and the Women's Food Service Forum. You're on the board of directors for Essential Property Realty Trust and the board of advisors for Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, which I know is near and dear to your heart. Heather, welcome to Stay Starry-Eyed.
Thank you, Liz. It's great to be here.
As we begin, Heather, I'd love for you to speak directly to the brand leader listening. What do you hope they'll take away from our convo today? What's one thing you hope they'll try or maybe think differently about for their own brand?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would like people to take away that you can still have fun and work hard every day. I think that's a big part of why I love what I do. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I'm not having fun. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. The other piece is that, humanity can be part of what you're doing and you can still be a really good human while driving a business forward. It's like the yin and yang of hospitality and restaurants and capitalism, and you can still really make a lot of big impacts in the world.
I love it. Yeah. Conscious capitalism where you can work hard, play hard, and it doesn't have to be all
right
grinding all the time.
Totally.
We'll get more into this, but how do you keep that attitude day to day, especially when things get tough?
I just think I'm an eternal optimist. It takes a lot to get me down. I will always find the glass half full, or I'll find something in the glass that is needing to be recognized. I think it's important to find those green shoots every day. It's important to get 1% better every day. When we bring our best selves to everything we do, we can show up in a way that makes sense and is meaningful and drives results too, because ultimately results matter.
That's right. Do you feel like it's the little things that you do? I was listening to some stats around the importance of making your bed or getting up early. I know you get your early runs in. Do you think that makes a difference in how you start too?
I think it does. And I'm a big reader and a big podcast listener. So I'm always reading about how other people who I admire are doing big things in the world. And then there's some common themes that I've tried to adopt. I think getting up early is a big deal. I'm definitely a morning person. So I'm a part of the 5 a.m. club. If you haven't read that book, by the way, excellent book, Robin Sharma, amazing book. But getting up early, I make my bed every day. I try to meditate every day. I try to journal every day. Do I do all those things 100% of the time every day? No. But I do work out every day. Exercise is a huge part of who I am. And my husband will attest that when I can't work out, I am not the best person. And my kids will say, "Did you run today? Because you're kind of cranky."
That makes a big difference. Well, knowing that I was going to meet with you today, I don't do it every day, but some days I get up at 5:25 and I run outside because I want to be hardcore like you. Today is the day.
And wasn't it a great way to start your morning?
It was awesome. And you know what else I've noticed, especially this time of year, it's much darker and the stars are shining down.
I love it.
Beautiful.
That's one thing I do when I first walk outside the front door in the mornings before my run. I look up and I look at the stars. Sometimes it's cloudy, but I do love seeing those stars. And I can see Orion's Belt, and I can see the Big Dipper, and I can see all the fun things that are up there that I remember looking at when I was a little kid.
That is so amazing. Yeah, I love that. Well, I've been trying to do that. You've inspired me to do it. I look straight first because there might be bears in the backyard. And I had a dream last night that what was just happening. But after that, I do what you do. So thanks for that.
Safety first.
Safety first. Well, Heather, tell us a little bit about how you started in the brand building world. I love hearing about Auntie Anne's and how you rose in the ranks.
Yeah, so my undergraduate degree is actually in English literature, which is not a marketing function or not really a business function. So my first role in brand building was really for an office supply manufacturer in New York. And I guess my comment to that is that if you can sell office supplies, which are not very sexy, you can sell anything. And I had a great time there. I learned a ton from some amazing leaders when I was there. And then I jumped back into the restaurant space when I joined Auntie Anne's in 2005, which, holy Hannah, that was 20 years ago. I started at Auntie Anne's as a marketing manager, and I moved up the ranks into, director of marketing, director of international marketing. I became CMO. I then took over all of our operations functions while still running the marketing functions, and then eventually became the president of the brand. And so it was that was a 15-year ride at Auntie Anne's. I think it's still think the world of the folks I got to work with then. My franchisees are awesome. The folks I got to work with were awesome. And it's one of those experiences that shaped me. And I feel really fortunate the whole way through my career, I've loved what I do. And there's never a day that I wake up and I don't want to go to work. Like, I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the work that I'm doing. It doesn't mean every day is easy, but I love what I'm doing and I'm having a great time with it.
That's so wonderful. I wish everybody had that. I wish everybody could find where they're meant to be. I would say, though, English Lit, that is a perfect storytelling setup for your marketing. And then I love how you added operations. Tell us a little bit about the importance of working in some of those other functions. And I remember the story of you saying, give me operations, I can do it.
Yeah. So I was the CMO at Auntie Anne's. We had not yet been sold to Rourke Capital. And our head of operations had left the company. And our CEO and I were talking. And he was like, hey, is there anybody that you think internally that can take the role? Are we looking outside? What are your thoughts on this? And we went through a bunch of different iterations. And then I said to him, there's always been this divide between marketing and ops and this like tension that sometimes is good and sometimes is not good. I said, what if I took over all of operations and really helped to bridge that gap between the two functions, because they're both super, super critical to how a brand runs. And he kind of dismissed it and was like, that's not how this works, but okay, thank you. And the meeting ended. And about a week later, he came back to me and he said, this is an interesting idea. And he's like, I'm going to give you a shot at doing this, but I'm not giving you any raise and I'm not changing your title. So basically, like, go do this and you're not going to get any money for it. And you're not going to get a title change for it. And it was like initially supposed to be like a 6-month assignment. And it turned into like a 6+ year assignment where I was running both marketing and operations as the CMO. And so I learned a ton. I think that really helped me jump into the role of president. I don't know that I would have gotten the role of president had I not had the opportunity to really dive deep into the operations function. I spent time with our ops leaders in the field. I went out and visited restaurants with them. I spent tons of time with franchisees, and all of those pieces helped me understand the business like A to Z and really helped to round out what I had already learned in the marketing function. So it's been a wild ride.
It was brilliant. And what are some of those early experiences, especially thinking about those two functions that shape the way you think about leadership, how you were able to take the helm?
Yeah, just spending time in the operations field and understanding the challenges our FBCs faced every day and how hard their jobs were. They're traveling, they're not at home, they're spending nights in hotels, they're getting to a restaurant at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and they might not be getting back to their hotel until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And they're constantly working to sell the story of the brand and the franchisor to the franchisees. And they're the ones that kind of face a lot of those firing squads, so to speak, of franchisees who were like, why do we have to do this? And why do we have to do that? And why did we take that away? And why did we add this? And that helped me to really better understand the need to sell not only to our franchisees, but to all of our employees, and to really take all that feedback into consideration. Because in many cases, I learned a ton about things that we could have thought through better based on the experiences I had on the operations side.
Mm-hmm. And especially in these franchise businesses, you have two targets. You have the consumer and the guest who you're trying to wow, but you also have the internal and all the franchisees who you want to come along with you and co-create together.
Totally. Yeah,
key.
and it's about this. It's all the stakeholders too, right? So you've got this pie in the sky marketing function that sees the world as very glossy and beautiful and easy, and then you've got these operators that are like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I can't execute that. And so learning how to blend those two is really important. And then just bringing those two teams closer together to give them kind of a behind the scenes peek of how the marketers think and why they think, and how the operators think and why they think, and helping them kind of see some common ground was really important.
We talk a lot about that at Starry-Eyed, where whether it's positioning or innovation, a lot of marketers say there are no bad ideas. And we say there are bad
There
ideas.
are bad ideas.
We don't want them. We want
Right.
them to work.
Right. Exactly.
When you think about bringing together marketing and ops, is that a structure that you would recommend for other companies? Did that work well? And do you think that that is something that should be in the same realm?
You know, it's interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen it anywhere since. And I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it, but I think it was really helpful for us at the time we were in at Auntie Anne's. We were in a fast growth mode, and we were, adding about 100 stores a year. And it was just important for us to have that blend. I do think there's always opportunities for leadership to really understand the different challenges of the different functions, and how when you make a decision in marketing, how those decisions impact your retail tech team, your operations team, your franchise business consultants, and obviously never forget how it impacts the actual restaurants, because those are the ultimate focus.
Genius. What's the best way, do you think, a recommended way for brand leaders, maybe in the marketing function, to understand all those different facets, that everything you do is going to impact every piece of the business, and it's got to be thought through?
Go spend time in the restaurants. Go spend time in the restaurants. We do that at Taco John's. We did it at Auntie Anne's. I think when you have a leadership group that intimately understands what it takes to run a drive-through during a busy lunch rush, what it takes to staff a restaurant and deal with call-outs on a Friday night when you're going to be busy, all of those pieces help you better appreciate and make better decisions for the brand longer term.
Definitely. And I would say you and Brett, CEO of Kava, are the ones I see most often doing the shoulder to shoulder on the front lines or in the back of house, however you want to say it, working with the teams. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's fun too, right? I mean, I can always feel my age when I go and work in a restaurant because my feet hurt by the end of the shift, but I have a ton of respect for what our crew members do day in and day out. And I never, ever, ever want to lose sight of that.
Brilliant. And no matter which business you're in, no matter which industry, that's something that all the brand leaders should be doing, is to get in it with our teams and see
right
the real world impact. When you think about your position, a stat that I think is so fascinating: women make up more than half the restaurant workforce, yet they hold only 18% of C-suite roles. And among the top 50 restaurant chains, only about 10% are led by women CEOs. Then when you look at Taco John's competitive set, Qdoba, Chipotle, Del Taco, so on, almost every major Mexican-inspired QSR brand is still led by a man. So, question for you is, what do you think needs to change in our industry for more women to make it to these top roles, especially inside the hospitality, franchised, operationally complex brands?
Yeah, I think we all need to be taking a hard look at this one, right? I mean, I think hospitality, probably more than other industries, has a more diverse workforce. But the fact that we really haven't moved the meter a whole heck of a lot in the past 15 to 20 years is a little embarrassing. And that's really on all of us. Like, it's really on all of us in this industry to constantly be challenging ourselves. And it's not about men versus women, but it's about who's the best person for the role, and why are so many women dropping out of the consideration set, and what point is that happening, and how can we change that? I do think women often end up opting out. I think for them, it's a challenge between being a mother and a professional. And the narrative we're hearing these days is that you can be one or the other, but you can't be both. And I don't think that's fair. I think you can do more than that. But I think we all need to support each other and bring the best person to the front of the table. Yeah. And that's the question you need to be asking yourself, is like, who, as a leader, who are you advocating for? And who's advocating for you when you're not in the room? Who helped to bring you here, and how are you helping the next generation to come along? There's room for a lot of us up here. Like, there doesn't need to be just one female CEO. And the idea of a token female CEO is a little frustrating for me too.
Agree.
Like, I actually had got this question before, and I was like, I don't want to answer this question because it shouldn't be a question. Like, I would like to get to a point where this is not the question we're talking about.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
I will say, when I've in all my jobs, most of the people towards the top were men with their stay-at-home wives. So it looks like you need to paint the picture, paint the possibility for it to actually be possible. So you're doing that. What else do you think we need to do to even things out?
Well, I think what you just said is spot on. They have the stay-at-home wives. Like, my husband and I have often gone to events that are for my job, and they look to him like he's like, oh, this isn't me, this is her job. Like, he's like, I work in the defense contracting world. I'm not part of the restaurant world. I think if a woman wants to grow in her professional career, she needs to speak up about it, and she needs to find those people that are going to advocate for her. And then we need to all advocate for each other. What support does she need? Women still disproportionately in 2025 carry the most of the caregiving role. Whether that's right or not, it's the reality. And it's not everybody, but we need to make sure that we're giving women the opportunity to grow in their careers if that's what they want to do. I think there's also unconscious bias. It's not just women that have unconscious bias, it's men that have unconscious bias. And the idea that men are assertive and women are aggressive when they're displaying the exact same traits is a little frustrating as well.
Agree. And that's work in progress. I would add to that with, historically, women have had an attitude of scarcity. Like you said, there are only a limited number of spots towards the top, and they're competing with each other, which doesn't help either.
No. At the end of the day, it's not about a lack of ambition. It's about a lack of structural support in our community and in our society. It is what it is. But representation matters. So when you're a young professional coming up in your career and you're an individual contributor, or you're a new supervisor or a manager or director, and you look ahead in your organization and you see a bunch of middle-aged white men, and you're a woman or you're a person of color, what is that saying to you about your future growth? Maybe, subconsciously or otherwise, what is that saying to you? I think we need to have a diverse representation of the communities that we're serving in our organizations.
Agree. And against all odds, here you are as the female CEO of Taco John's. What advice would you give to these up-and-coming brand leaders to do what you have done?
I think be unabashedly who you are. I think the times that I've been the most successful in my career is when I say what I want and I go after it, and I'm very direct about it. I think the times that I've struggled are when I'm trying to be somebody I'm not. I think being authentic is who I am. I am a very high energy person. I do unabashedly get up early every morning. And there have been times when I've been trying to squash my own personality because it wasn't, kosher to be as upbeat and perky and fun and excited as I always am. And so I think those are things that, the stereotypical person, you need to make sure that you're being your authentic self every day. And you need to make sure that you're owning your own career too. I've been very direct about what I wanted. I remember when I joined Auntie Anne's, I was joining as a marketing manager, and our CMO that hired me, she was a woman also. She's now a Chick-fil-A franchisee. She said to me, "Where do you want to be in 5 years?" And I looked at her and I was like, "I want to be in your seat." And, it was a little bold. I was, 29, 28, something like that. And, we talked about that afterwards. And then, I started working towards that. And she's like, "Well, here's some things you need to work on. And here's some things that you're going to need to work towards to fix what you're doing." And so having somebody like her who gave me really direct feedback and didn't mince words helped me become who I am. But I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, is finding a leader that can believe in you and can identify the things that you need to work on to continue to grow. When she left the company, she went to become a Chick-fil-A franchisee, and she recommended me for the role. And they did do a search, and ultimately I was the one that was chosen for that CMO role.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounds like she wasn't threatened by that either. She's like, "Okay, I'll help you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Has anyone said that to you? "I want to be where you are"?
Yes, I have heard that multiple times. And I'm more than happy to be like, "Great, here's some things we need to work towards. Let's keep working on these together." I'm more than happy to talk with anybody, male or female, about their career and how they can grow. I definitely don't have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important for every single one of us to reach back and bring people along with us on the ride that we're on.
I agree. Back to women rising in the ranks, all the things that we are up against, where do you think the drop-off happens? And this can be more anecdotal. Maybe we don't have the stats behind it, but is it in the pipeline, the promotion process, mentorship? Where do you think it happens right now in the organizations that you've seen?
That's a great question, Liz. I think it happens probably, my guess, and I'm not like a statistician or a researcher, but I do think when women get married and then decide to have children, that cause, unnatural or other, I mean, like, when you have to take off 8 weeks or 12 weeks, and we can get into a whole different conversation around our maternal health situation here in the United States compared to other countries. But when you have to take a pause and take off time, that should be seen as a win for everybody involved, because it shows that you've got a well-rounded lifestyle and you've got a well-rounded perspective on the world. And I think a lot of women end up unofficially or unconsciously getting sidetracked by that and seen as the background. I've heard people say before, "Oh, we can't promote her. She's going to be pregnant soon." And it makes me like cringe. Like, what did you just say? Like, I don't really care. If this is the best person for the job, we'll work through that and have one baby, have two babies, have five babies. I don't care. If you're the best person for the job and you're committed, like, let's go for it. And so I think, some of the things that we've done recently since COVID, especially like the flexibility piece is important. I think women have benefited from a hybrid workplace, and I think that's helped a lot of people. I love in-office time. So, I mean, I think I like being in the office. I don't often work from home, but I think the ability for people to work from home and work in the office gives women probably the edge that they need to continue growing in their career, because again, they are often the ones responsible for the majority of the caregiving, whether it's their own children or, I'm at the place now where my parents are getting older, and that's the next step in the puzzle.
Yes. I think you're right. I think it is right around there where you start to have a family. I always felt pressured to wait a little bit later until I was at a certain level so I could do that. It also, I think, speaks to how your team performs. If you set up your team really well, they can continue on while you're out with your tiny one. But yeah, if I show up, I think I would have had like a kid or two, only because I extracted myself from the workplace with a move and worked from home in another state. Was I able to have 5 kids? There's no way.
Right.
I had to go every day.
Right. It's just, it's a lot of structural things that are stacked against a woman wanting to grow in her career.
Yes. Well, I love
we also are the main consumer too. So I think we need to, like, in a lot of our consumer brands that we're working on in the restaurant space specifically, women are the one making the decisions about what restaurant they go to. And when you don't have women in the decision-making chairs within the organization, sometimes you miss some of those key pieces of the puzzle.
Totally. Yes, because you won't see it from her perspective.
Right.
Speaking of which, how does the Taco John's team stay in touch with the guests? How do you know, especially with the positive trajectory right now, as you are kind of turning things around, rebuilding, setting out to reclaim some of the history and the heritage and make that relevant again? How do you stay in touch with, I'll call her, because a lot of the women are deciding where to go?
Yeah, I mean, Taco John's is almost 60 years old. We've been around since 1969. We've got a great legacy to build upon. And I think for us, it's about taking what our loyal guests love about the brand and honoring that heritage while continuing to build for the future. We're constantly talking to our guests through different research studies. We're looking at what guests are doing. We're looking at the data that guests are telling us by their behavior and their actions and their frequency of visits, and how often are they ordering the potato olays, and how often are they ordering a taco bravo, and where else do we need to lean into to make sure that we're addressing the consumer needs in the business. It's about accessibility and creating accessibility points for our guests to come to the business more often.
I love it. When you think about these longtime legacy brands, like you said, almost 60 years old, how are you harnessing that history to prepare and insulate it for another 60 years and beyond? What's exciting when you look back to move forward that was even more relevant now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got it's an incredible brand. The history and the fan love is just palpable. Like when you talk to guests about Taco John's, like you see their faces light up and you see them talk about memories they have and what can we do to take the best pieces of that and grow the brand forward. So we know that we've got equity around our West Mex menu. We have equity around potato olays and Taco Tuesday. And our Taco Bravo just won Best Fast Food Taco in the United States this year. And so taking all those pieces and also acknowledging that 60 years ago was a long time. And so what are the best pieces of 60 years ago that we can marry up with today and moving forward? And that's making sure that we've got an app that works really well for consumers and is easy to use, and making sure the experience for the guests is one that's super pleasant and fun and hospitable when they come into our restaurants, and continuing to make sure that as we evolve our menu, we're evolving it in a way that makes sense for today's consumer.
Any innovations you can tell us a little bit about? Like spoiler alert, sneak previews?
Yeah, I don't want to do spoiler alert, but I do think there's things that Taco John's has done for a long time that we haven't talked a ton about. So we talk a lot about our West Mex menu, and it's a little bit different than true Mexican. It's more, Mexican with a flair for the cowboy, and that's really important to remember. Our potato olays are hands down our most well-known menu item. But in addition to the potato olays and the West Mex theme of the menu, we make our taco shells in the restaurant every single day from scratch. Many of our restaurants are making their ground beef from scratch every day. We're making our pico de gallo in the restaurants. And we're also moving towards making a lot of our other menu items that we used to make from scratch in the restaurant. We're now going back to doing that as a way to focus on that quality heritage. Got some other competitors in our space, in the Mexican space, that are really big and huge with huge media budgets. We can't compete with that. Where we can compete is on our quality positioning. And we know that we've got really high quality food. We always have had really high quality food. We just haven't talked about it enough. And so we're continuing to pivot back towards some of the things that made us great many years ago that are still really relevant for guests today and are important for guests today.
I love it. And that's more important now than ever before, especially as all these other fast food giants are using microwaves and pre-packed everything. Plus, we've talked before about the importance of cowboy culture right now. It's everywhere.
That's right.
I was just in Cheyenne.
Taco John is a guy. I mean, he's our person. He's our man.
He's a real guy.
Totally.
It's amazing. Oh, that's so fun. Well, thinking about the passionate fan base, how do you evaluate what fits the brand and what doesn't, especially when things are moving fast? And like you said, some of these key contenders have a lot more budget, a lot more resources, a lot more to pull from. What are the ways that you are thinking of driving this legacy brand and doing more with less?
Yeah, so our brand, we've got a lot of awesome ideas. I think our biggest challenge right now is staying really focused on what we know is going to move the meter. And that's really around that quality messaging. We don't have the resources to introduce, 12 new menu items every 6 months. That's just not who we are as a brand. But we can lean into taking our existing items and making them even better. So this past fall, we did a beaten potato burrito variation. Beaten potato burrito is one of our top sellers. It's been on the menu for a long time. But this year, we added a little bit of spice to it. We added the jalapenos to it. We've done a couple little tweaks here and there with some of our core menu items that our guests know us for so long. And we really focus on dialing them up a little bit and making those core menu items a little bit more exciting and a little bit more fun. And we'll continue to do that into next year. I think I can share this. We're doing a grilled stuffed taco, which we've done for a long time, but we've taken that grilled stuffed taco that used to be a huge part of our menu, and it's kind of fallen off the path. It's, dropped down from 10% of sales down to a little bit less than that. And now we're taking it and going back and saying, what made this great 5, 6, 7 years ago? And how can we make it great again? And what can we do to make that grilled stuffed taco the home run that it needs to be for the taco, to be able to earn that Taco John's branding placement?
Mm-hmm. How fun. I think a lot of brand leaders always think they need some wild new idea that's never been done before. And instead, just make great what you're already known for.
Yeah. And just stay focused on taking care of the guest. That hospitality piece is so critical to who we are.
True. I know hospitality, especially since COVID, has been a tough place to be. When you think about, again, resources or morale dipping, how do you keep teams motivated and inspired?
Yeah, I mean, Taco John's is a great long-time brand. And I think one of the things that we do to keep our morale high is we focus on those small wins. We focus on getting 1% better every day. Not every day is going to be a home run. We might get a 0.5% better yesterday, but we're going to get a 1.5% better today. And constantly finding those things that we can celebrate as wins are really important. We've been talking a lot about hospitality in our restaurants. So I've been pulling forward the positive customer comments that we get from our guests and making sure that we elevate those and highlight those to the rest of our franchise community. Like, hey, the guests notice when we do things right. They notice when we do things wrong, to be clear, but the guests also really gives us credit when we do things right. So let's make more of these momentous events that, selling a taco to a guest on a random Wednesday or Thursday might not seem like a moment, but if we can really deliver a wow experience, we can make that a moment for the guest that is remarkable to them.
Love that. I think there are a few brands, I'm thinking of Chick-fil-A and their Little Things campaign, where they've found the connections created between the team member and the guest, and they'll bring them in and sit on the little red couch and highlight that. Do you think that's something that more brands should be doing?
I think brands need to do it in their own individual way. I think Chick-fil-A has done a nice job with that particular approach. But I think the best thing to look at is what makes sense for your brand and what makes sense for you to highlight in your brand. For us, our guests are really busy, and we also know they've got a lot of choices. So when they come through our drive-through, that needs to be a really efficient process, and it needs to be a process that they feel good about and they get a smile from the employee at the restaurant.
True. Do you have this is a little bit tactical, but do you have any tips or scripts or things for people to say to ensure that guest treatment, especially if that applies to all kinds of businesses, service, retail, in addition to hospitality? How do you make sure that they're creating those moments?
Yeah, I think it's about giving the employees the empowerment to make the moment unique in its own way. I think when you've got to, I do caution on using scripts. There's always a time for them, but I think the most authentic brand experiences happen when the employee is reaching out to the guests in a way that's meaningful for them and is not scripted and doesn't feel canned. I think when it's canned, it feels a little funky and not real, not authentic. I think being authentic is a huge part of who Taco John's is, and we need to continue to lean into that.
Totally. Yeah. The true story, the legacy, the long time, team members and things that have been passed down. That makes a lot of sense. When you think about maybe over the next few years, what do you hope to see for Taco John's as you continue to grow the brand, expand the family of franchisees, at the same time keeping in close touch with that heritage of West Mex and the cowboy culture, since you are from Wyoming?
Yeah. Cheyenne, Wyoming is where we were founded in 1969. Yeah, I think for us, it's about taking the core equities that we know so well today and building upon them one piece at a time. So it's not about a revolution, it's about an evolution, and it's about taking each piece of the puzzle and continuing to build on that. So we are working hard on Taco Tuesday again, which was a big debacle several years ago, but we're reclaiming our place in the Taco Tuesday space. And then we also are going back to some of the things like Taco Bravo Thursday, which is a brand equity that we've been able to harness for many years, and we got away from that. So again, it's not about reinventing the wheel or some new splashy campaign. It's about what made this brand work before and how can we take those things that worked really well before, update them a little bit for 2025 and beyond, and then go with it. So for me, I'd love to see Taco John's continuing to grow in our core footprint and then, concentrically out from there. We're in the upper Midwest. We're in 22 states. We've got a lot of really loyal fans, and we'd love to keep growing in a way that's really responsible for our franchisees. We want to make sure the franchisee profitability is always a focal point, and we're delivering a great guest experience every single time.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about some of the newer marketing methods? We know, we always have to have our marketing calendar, our windows, even if it is improving core items. What are your thoughts about things like influencers and co-branded collaborations and things that we have seen move, especially on the hospitality and the retail side?
Yeah, I think those things are all important pieces of the puzzle, but they're all tactical things that help make the brand real. I think when you try too hard, those things can come off as inauthentic. So it needs to be a logical connection. We really focus on things that are organic and that feel right for the brand versus what everybody else is doing.
That's great. And that's what we need to do. A lot of these same brands, chasing the trends or just doing the same thing. It's like, just think about what the brand is, what the guest wants.
Right. We can say yes to things and we can also say no to things. And saying no to things is probably almost as important as saying yes to things.
Agree. How do you talk the team into that? If somebody really wants to do something because so-and-so, the brand leader or the category leader is doing it, another brand, how do you remind people of that?
we always go back to our vision. And our vision is to be the community's first choice for tacos and burritos. And if what we're trying to do accomplishes that vision, then we can move forward with it. And if it doesn't, we need to reevaluate.
That's great. And how do you quantify your 1%? I love this idea of 1% better every day. You're making progress. How do you quantify that? And how do you set things up to measure the progress you've made?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just a feel. Sometimes it's not really like the 1%, literally 1%, but it's about constantly finding little tweaks that you can do every day. Because again, we're working, 5, 6, 7 days a week. We're working, open to close in our restaurants. Some of our franchisees are. What can we do to make it a little bit better every day? What can we do to take 5 more guests through the restaurant drive-through faster? What can we do to make 5 more guests reach out to us and say, that was a really awesome experience. Thank you for that awesome taco that you just made for me. Those little tiny tweaks that we can make a lot of difference. 1% better every day really takes you down the path of focusing on continual improvement.
I love it. Is there a time when you had to make some of those hard decisions, whether it's saying no to something or steering the ship in a new direction? What is one of the hardest decisions you've made in your time as CEO so far?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we're making decisions every day, right? And as a CEO, you've got to make the decision. I think the worst decision you make is the decision you don't make, right? So you make a decision, you make it fast. If it's not working, you tweak it and you own it and you move on. Just a few weeks ago, we were in the middle of a government shutdown, and one of our franchisees had reached out to us and said, hey, I'd like to offer guests in my community a free meal for those that are affected by the reduction in SNAP benefits and folks that aren't getting paychecks because they're government employees, et cetera. And of course, yeah, sure, in your local market, no problem. Posted it on their local Taco John's in XYZ town Facebook page. And another guest randomly screenshotted it, cropped out, valid only at ABC location. And that post hit more than 4 million people in about 4 hours. And so that created some interesting things that we needed to figure out and work towards. And so literally 6 p.m. on Wednesday night, October 29th, I started getting emails and texts from franchisees going, what is this? What's going on? And we dug into it and figured out that it was a local franchisee and it had gone viral. And we had a couple different choices. We ended up calling a franchisee meeting for the next morning with our franchise association. And we were like, hey, here's the reality. This just went viral really quickly. And one of our values at Taco John's is to give back in our communities. And so while it was not ideal and not planned fully and nothing that we had on a marketing calendar from a year and a half ago, we ended up pivoting. And Thursday morning, October 30th, we made the decision to begin offering a free meal to any guest that comes to our restaurant, no strings attached, from Friday, October 31st through Sunday, November 2nd. That created any number of potential problems. We had supply chain issues. It was Halloween weekend. So many of our teenagers that work in our restaurants had requested off for various Halloween parties. It's homecoming, it's football games. It's literally everything that we could have seen that was a challenge became a bigger challenge because of the timing. But as a franchise organization, we worked with our franchisees. We decided to push this out and it became a community goodwill event. We ended up giving away 20,000 meals that weekend to guests in our restaurants. We got a lot of great coverage from it, which was not by any means the intention, but we want to do the right thing in our communities and give back. And those were 2 values that we live by, and we lived by it that weekend. So we were sitting there facing a tough decision. And the decision we ultimately made was the right thing to do is to make this a system-wide offer and to make it valid from Friday to Sunday. And we went from there. We ended up getting some great public relations out of it, which was awesome. We ended up getting some great community support. And then ultimately, a lot of our vendors called us and said, hey, we want to kick in some money for this. And we want to support you guys in doing this. So, it was a tough pivot. It was a tough call to make, but it was one that we made collaboratively that was going to benefit the brand in the long run.
Wow. And what was the conclusion, franchisee and corporate team wide? What did you learn from that?
We learned that we can move a lot quicker when we think we can't, because it was literally 18 hours from when this started to when we launched it system wide.
Yes.
Our supply chain team stepped up quickly. Our franchisees stepped up quickly. I took a lot of franchisee calls that were like, I want to help and give back, but I can't do this tomorrow. And I'm like, right. But if we don't honor this, we're going to get a lot of egg on our face, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the community. And everybody agreed it was the right thing to do. Not everybody loved the timing of it because it literally was, we're starting this tomorrow. But I think it was also a decision, and I'm really proud of the team, the entire organization, for stepping up in the way that we did, because it required our franchisees to pivot. It required our corporate employees to pivot, and it required people to make changes that weekend that they never had intended to change. But moving fast in this day and age is important.
Now that you've done that because you had to, is there a moment, I'm trying to think of something wild, the AMC's just hit, like something happens within the space of Taco John's orbit and cowboy culture. Would you do that again? Would you pick something and say, we're doing it, everybody in?
I think for us, it's about being nimble and being dynamic. We've got a marketing calendar, obviously. We want to be respectful of the challenges our franchisees face. So as long as we're doing it in collaboration with our franchisees, I think it's important for us to be relevant and to be able to act quickly in this current world that we're living in that is moving super fast.
That makes sense. Was everyone a tiny bit upset with that initial franchisee?
I think there's always opportunities for how things can be done differently. The biggest piece of that puzzle is for us corporately to learn from that situation and what happened.
Totally. And I'm sure it's all fine now. It all worked out. It's a great example of making some quick decisions. When you think about
lemonade out of lemons.
Yes, Alex style.
That's right.
When you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what will separate creative brand leaders who aren't afraid to make some of those fast moves fall behind? What do you think separates them?
I think nimbleness is super important. Not being able to hang on to, this is what my marketing calendar says. We've pivoted a few times this year on our marketing calendar based on macroeconomic forces and what our competition was doing in order to be more relevant. I think the best brand leaders are the ones that are able to admit that what I thought was true is not true anymore, and I need to pivot and move forward. I think the name of the game right now is nimbleness. I think the current economic situations that we're in are going to continue for the next 12 to 18 months. That uncertainty is a reality for our guests, and we need to make sure that we're delivering to them what they need from us in the moment.
And how do you stay nimble day to day and also creative day to day, thinking ahead, being ready for what's next, coming up with those next ideas?
I don't entirely think that I'm super creative. I do feel like it's super important that we're always looking at what our competition is doing, and not just our direct competition, but I think in the space that we're in now, it isn't just about the other QSRs or even the other Mexican QSRs. It's about fast casual. It's about casual dining. It's about looking at C-stores. What is Buc-ee's doing out there that we can learn from? And what is Racetrack and Quick Trip doing that we can learn from? So the competition set has gotten a lot more diverse, and we need to make sure that we're constantly challenging ourselves to be better. I read a ton. I am constantly listening to different kind of podcasts. And even if they're not in our industry, I'm thinking how does this conversation about how Boeing was developed make sense to my business? And what can I learn from what they learned and apply that to my business?
Yeah, that's my hope for brand leaders all around, that they'll take all your lessons from Taco John's and before all of your Auntie Anne's brilliance and apply it. Knowing how you are a decisive person thinking about the next thing, what do you hope to do next? I know you're not going anywhere anytime soon, but do you have another aspiration when you were that, young, up and coming marketer? You're still very young. When you were that up and coming marketer thinking about the seat that you wanted, what else would you like to do next?
I love what I'm doing now. I like making a difference. I like being able to see the fruits of my labor, and I like being able to work with a team that is all in. And we talk about that a lot. We're all in, and we're working hard together. We're working hard with our franchisees, working hard with our key stakeholders to make this brand the best it can be. And I want to be part of a brand that is winning, that is the best it can be day in and day out, while continuing to honor our legacy and our heritage. I'm honored to be able to be part of this brand. And I'm excited to continue to see us work together with our franchisees to make the brand even better.
Maybe we can switch gears a little bit into our starry-eyed sparks, our little lightning round. what is the most inspiring book you've read? That could be something lately or your all-time fave.
So I read a ton, so it's hard to find one, Liz. I can't give you just one. So I will give you two. And it's the book Begin with We from Kyle McDowell, I think is his last name. We read that as a team last year, and it basically talks about 10 different philosophies on how you do things. And it's details matter, and it's we win together. And there's 10 different very basic things that when you get caught up in business jargon and mumbo jumbo and corporate speak, you can kind of lose sight of what really is important. And this book, Begin with We, just really boils it down to we're in this together and we've got to win together. We've got to be on the same page and win together. And the other book, I read a ton, so it's hard to pick another one, but I will pick a second one. And it's the 5 a.m. Club. And I read it, I don't know, January of this year. And I've always gotten up at 5 a.m. That's kind of been my time to get up for a long time. But my alarm now on my iPhone says 5 a.m. Club, baby, because it's time to get up and it's time to get your day going.
That's awesome. Do you have any other favorites who get up at the same time?
Yeah. So a lot of my friends get up at 5 a.m. I think I'm part of a group of crazy people that like to get up and work out. I have a girlfriend that I run with, and we used to be neighbors in Pennsylvania. She now lives in Rhode Island, and I now live in Minnesota, but we still get up and run together, and we just call each other. And so we will often get up and at least twice a week, usually on Saturdays, and usually one other day, we'll sit and we'll talk. My COO is an early bird, and she and I will often solve the world's problems before 7 a.m. But a lot of people do get up early with me, and my husband is not one of those people because he got up for 20 years in the Marine Corps at 5 a.m. or earlier in many cases. But I love early birds. I think I get a lot done before 7 a.m.
That's wonderful. Your first book reminded me I should ask a little bit more about those simple messages, especially when you're selling this vision into so many different stakeholders. Like you said, you got your guests, your franchisees, but I also want to touch on the board for a second. How do you think about the messaging, especially going back to, being one of the few women in this industry leading the company and thinking through all the things that you not only want to do, but the things that you have to tell them? How do you navigate that and think about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, outside of our quarterly board meetings, which are the formal things that we do, I want to operate in a spirit of transparency. So if something meaningful has happened within the organization that I need to make somebody aware of, I reach out to the board quickly. I make them aware of potential acquisitions that we're looking at from franchisee perspective. I make them aware of wins in the organization. I make them aware of anything that's happening in our brand that I think is important for them to know. I sit on some boards myself. And so I try to put that filter on of like, as a board member, what would I want to know about? And I want to operate in a spirit of transparency. So maybe I over communicate, but I think in the grand scheme of things, over communication is probably always better than having them be surprised by something or not understand what was going on behind the scenes.
Definitely. There are a lot of women leaders who I've heard think they need to go to special classes to be trained and prepared to sit on boards. And what struck me about that was I've never heard of a man going to a class to prepare for his board seat. Talk to me a little bit about that. What do you think people, especially women leaders, need to do or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've probably all heard the stat where women feel like they have to have 100% of the qualifications before they would apply for the next role. And men think they need about 20% of them before they apply for the role. I think both situations are wrong. I think you're never fully prepared for the next role. So I think if you're 50, 60, 70% there, that's when you should be thinking about your next step. I also think you've got to take risks in your career, right? I mean, you've got to take those leaps. You've got to make those changes. I was at Auntie Anne's. I was president for 5 years. And in my mind, I was getting ready to move on to my next step. And so I made the leap to the franchisee side and went and worked for KBP, which was an incredible opportunity for me to learn the franchisee side of the business, which I knew because I'd worked with franchisees, but you don't know until you're actually on the franchisee side yourself and you're learning the ops and the day in and day out. And so, you've got to take risks in your career and you've got to be willing to make those leaps. I think women are probably historically a little more risk averse than men. Maybe that's a broad generalization, but I think it's probably accurate. And at the end of the day, nothing can't be undone, right? I mean, short of a tattoo that you got at spring break that
even that you can take off now.
Yeah, right. But at the end of the day, you've got to take risks and be bold in what you're doing, and you've got to own it. I think I've been very fortunate that my husband is wildly supportive of me and all my crazy ideas. And I think having a partner in life that is supportive of you will take you very far too. And I think that's something that we shouldn't dismiss in the conversation about men and women in their careers, because you've got to have a partner that's supportive of what you want to do and your goals and your ambitions.
It gives me chills. It's so true. So true. So important. What's one word that describes how you want to lead in the next year? Shiny new year.
I'm going to say authentic. And I think that's a big part of who I am. And I think that's, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'm going to own it. If we're going to win, we're going to win together and we're going to drive forward.
Brilliant. What's one new thing you'd like to try in the next year?
A new thing I'd like to try. I don't know, Liz. I need to get better at eating sushi, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe go to Japan and see the real deal. I don't know. What about one walk-on or pump-up song? You're getting ready for your big franchise convention. What do you play?
Super easy answer. Mama Said Knock You Out, LL Cool J. What a powerful song. Like, you just hear the opening beats and you're like ready to rock and roll.
Oh, I love it so much. Favorite cocktail or mocktail?
Well, I get up at 5 a.m., so I'm going to go with black coffee and water.
What about when I come over at 5 o'clock?
We'll have some red wine together.
Okay, that's a deal. Or we could do
black coffee with collagen and creatine, I should add, because, I'm a woman of a certain age.
Okay, I love it. We could also do some sort of Taco John's margarita, too.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll work on a West Mex marg for us.
Perfect.
And to wrap up, I love being with you as one of my favorite clients and friends. I appreciate your expertise, sharing your experience and ideas with us. 2 final questions for you, Heather. What's one mindset or action you'd encourage brand leaders to try or do differently after listening to today?
Be bold and take risks.
Mic drop. And who is a creative brand leader you admire and think we should invite to stay starry-eyed next?
Well, you already had Greg Creed on, and I'm the founding member of the Greg Creed fan club. More than happy to be taking membership opportunities there.
Yeah, I'll join that.
Who has been super awesome for me in my career is a guy named Paul D'Amico. He retired, but we all knew he wasn't really retired, and now he's back in the game. And he's been somebody that I have reached out to. He actually promoted me to president at Auntie Anne's. He was my boss. And he's been an amazing guy to work for and learn from. And his energy and passion for people and enthusiasm for things is always an inspiration for me. What a wonderful recommendation. And I think that... You can tell him I sent you. I will tell him that. And he is, yes, coming back. He may never retire because the world needs his brilliance. We do need Paul. We do. Well, Heather, thank you so much. Thank you. This was fun. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Stay Starry-Eyed podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas, strategies, and tools you can use to move your brand and business forward. If you enjoyed this episode, here's how you can help share it with your fellow brand leaders who need it most. Hit follow, share it with a friend, and please leave us 5 stars or a quick review. You know we love all the stars. You can also find show notes, resources, and additional inspiration at starryeyedstrategy.com. Until next time, stay starry-eyed.